I will start with the topic. So, what is a gesture? When you move your body part, when you move any body part, the movement of your body part is regarded as a gesture. All right. When you move your hands, when you move any other body part, when you move your head, that is known as a gesture. It is a form of non-verbal communication. So sometimes when we communicate with one another, we use our hands to explain certain things. We use our body parts to explain certain things. So that particular way of expressing our thoughts is known as nonverbal communication, of course, nonverbal communication, and it is known as a gesture. So it is an action that uh, that that has a particular message, and gestures includes movement of hands, movement of face, movement of our head, and other body parts. So when you wave, that is also a gesture. When you wave, that means you are saying bye. Saluting is a gesture. Handshake is also a gesture. When you point your finger, that is also a gesture. When you show thumbs up, that is also a gesture. So, whenever you nod, that is also a gesture. Movement of your body parts is basically known as a gesture. All right. So, a gesture is something that takes place when you have a conversation with someone, when you have some kind of interaction with someone. Sometimes it is intentional and sometimes it is unintentional. So, whenever I talk, I use my hands a lot. So, that is also a gesture, and that is quite unintentional. So it has become a habit. I use my hands whenever I explain certain things, so my hands move. That is a gesture. When somebody asks you whether you have understood or not, when you move your head, that is also regarded as a gesture, and that is intentional. Sometimes it is unintentional, it automatically comes, it automatically appears, and sometimes it is intentional. When you intentionally use your hand to communicate with someone, to share a message, when you intentionally use your head to say yes or to say no. All right. So gestures play a very important role in the process of communication. It's a great way of expressing our feelings along with the words. So sometimes we use only gestures our uh, to express our emotions. Sometimes we use only gestures, and sometimes we use gestures along with words. Sometimes gestures uh, can be the most effective way, can be the most effective non-verbal tools to express a certain meaning to a lot of people and to supplement the verbal communication. Sometimes it acts as a supplement, and sometimes when you do not speak any words, sometimes you can just raise your hand to pass on a message. Sometimes just you can move your head to respond to someone. So, in that way, we use gestures in our day to day life. So, whenever we communicate, we definitely use our body parts to express our emotions, to express our opinions. So that is particularly known as gestures. Whenever we move our hands, whenever we move our head, whenever we move our face, then that is basically known as a gesture. So it can be sometimes dependent on the speech. Whenever a person is saying something, and along with that, the person is also using the hands to explain it, some signs and symbols to explain it. So, in that case, it can be dependent upon the speech, dependent upon the words. All right. And sometimes it can be independent. Sometimes it can just be independent. Sometimes you do not accompany gestures with words. Sometimes you just wave your hand to say a bye, to say a hello. Sometimes you just show the thumbs up. Sometimes you just uh, show thumbs up in order to say someone best of luck. And you have not even used a word to express that emotion, express that feeling. So sometimes gestures are independent. When you only use gestures to explain your opinions, to explain your thoughts, to explain, to express any kind of feelings. And sometimes gestures are totally dependent upon the words. You use gestures along with words when you have a conversation with someone. So when you use your hands at that moment, when you use your head, when you move your head, when you're having a conversation with someone. So it is dependent on the words. All right. So gestures are, as I had said, gestures are a very important part of the communication. It can express a lot of emotions, it can express a lot of things, and so we should take care of the gestures. Sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it can be negative. For example, when you are taking part in a GD, when you are a, a participant, all right, and you point fingers towards another participant. That is something considered as negative, all right? And when you show a thumbs up before the exam to your friend, that is considered as a positive way of expressing your emotion. So gestures can sometimes be negative and sometimes it can be positive, especially when you use your hands or use your fingers to point to point at someone. So that is regarded as negative gestures. And other than that, when somebody is telling you something, and if you're the listener, when you move your head, that is regarded as a negative that is regarded as a positive gesture. That means when you move your head, that means you're listening to the other person and you are understanding what the other person is saying. So when you nod your head, it is a gesture. So it is basically a gesture to say a yes in our culture, isn't it? So there are different types of gestures that we use in our day to day life. But whenever we uh, use any of the gestures, we should uh, we should at least take care that we should take care of the thing that it does not portray any negative meaning. Okay, so in now gestures, they don't have a universal meaning. Okay, gestures, they don't have a universal meaning. They might be different in different, they might be considered different in different cultures, all right, or in different countries or in different states. So a gesture which might be considered as a positive gesture in my culture or in my country might not be considered as a positive gesture in some other country, in some other culture. All right, so that is why you should also try to understand that whatever gestures you are displaying, whether it's uh, hurting the person, you should also take care of these things, whether it is offending the person uh, or portraying some negative signs, or the gesture that you are using is correct, or whether it's positive or negative. So you should take care of all these things. So a small example is given here. Gestures like nodding one's head in Canada, it means yes. Okay, in Canada, in India, it's in India also it means yes, but in Bulgaria it means a no. So when you nod your head in Bulgaria, it means that you're saying no. So the meaning of each and every gesture is different. It might be different in different cultures in different countries. So of course we like are not aware of the meaning of the different types of gestures in all the cultures in all the countries. So sometimes this might also create some kind of misunderstanding if you're visiting some other place, if you're visiting some other country, if you're meeting a person who mm, who belongs to a different culture. So sometimes this may create a misunderstanding, but of course, as human beings, it's not possible for us to know each and everything related to the gesture in each and every culture, because there are many countries, there are many cultures. So in each and every culture, it might have a different meaning. But you must know that like gestures are not universal. It does not have only one meaning. So it might be different depending upon the place, depending upon the culture. So in India, we are all are aware of certain gestures that are accepted throughout, that are considered to be positive, like when you show thumbs up. So thumbs down is something that is a negative gesture. That means you are discouraging the person. If you're showing a thumbs up, that means you're not motivating the person. You do not, you're not like you do not like that person. It's a negative gesture. When you're showing a thumbs up, that means you want that person to do good. That means you are wishing him luck, isn't it? So now, like nodding your head in India is also considered as a yes, and then pointing fingers towards others, it is considered as a negative gesture, because you cannot point your fingers, you cannot point your hands. Okay, you can call that person, but you cannot point. You can shake your hands, you can offer handshakes, and that is also regarded as a positive way of greeting somebody. But there are different types of handshakes as well, and certain handshakes are considered to be positive, whereas certain handshakes are considered to be uh, negative ones, which portrays negative meaning. So we shall be learning about handshakes as well, the types, how you should shake your hand. Basically, how you should shake your hand, you should know regarding a few important things related to handshakes. So I will be teaching about handshakes in the next class, all right? But for time being, you must understand that gestures are the movements of body parts. So this is the first thing that you need to remember. Then the second thing is gestures are not universal. It might have different meaning in different countries, in different culture. The third is gestures can be dependent. It can be dependent on the words. Sometimes gestures can be dependent on the words, and sometimes gestures can be independent. So when you're only using the gesture to express a feeling, that means It is independent. And when you are having a conversation with someone and your conversation is is what to say, what is the word, your conversation is supported by certain gestures, complemented by certain gestures, then uh, those gestures are speech dependent. So in that case, the gestures are speech dependent when you're having a conversation with someone and you're also complementing your conversation with certain gestures. So then gestures are speech dependent, or it is dependent on the words. But at times when you use gestures, when you use only gestures to express certain feelings, then it is considered to be a negative, independent. There are the next thing that you must remember is there are positive gestures, there are negative gestures. So it might vary according to the countries, according to the cultures, but I would just like to say that pointing fingers, showing thumbs down is a kind of a negative gesture. Whereas when you want to say a hi or when you want to say bye, you can use your hand, you can wave to express that feeling. Saluting is used in army. The people who work the armies, they use salutes to communicate with one another, to greet one another, and the policeman. So saluting is a part of our country. Then handshakes are a part of handshakes are used to greet people, and there are certain negative handshakes and there are certain handshakes which portrays positivity. So we'll be learning about handshakes in the next class. So that's all about gestures. It's a very small and a simple topic. So is there any kind of doubt regarding this topic? I have already shared this uh, in the WhatsApp group, so you can just read it once and let me know if you have any doubts. And so that's all. That's all about gesture.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, is there any doubt regarding gesture?
No, ma'am.